Hey, Bastish B here for 64K and welcome to the second episode of Modern Vintage. So if you've never watched Modern Vintage before, I take a look at a new retro-inspired game on a new system, and then we also take a look at the inspiration game behind that, the game that might have inspired this new retro incarnation. So let's take a look at today's games. Okay, so let's jump on over to the original version of Saboteur. The original version of Saboteur was released in 1985 by Durrel on the ZX Spectrum. We'll be having a look at the Commodore 64 version today. Durrel as a software company were pretty hit and miss, having made other games like Thanatos and Chain Reaction. They focused on the Spectrum foremost, with C64 and Amstrad ports following. Saboteur itself is a reworked game, as the creator Clive Townsend could not get another Spectrum game, namely Death Pit, he was working on to flow the way he wanted. So he took the Death Pit assets and he changed them into what became known as Saboteur. If you've never played it before, you take the role of a ninja who has to infiltrate a high security building and perform some industrial espionage by stealing a disk full of files and then escaping by helicopter. The place is crawling with security measures like dogs, cameras with guns, security guards, locked doors, and maze-like corridors. The faster and more efficiently you complete the mission, the higher your overall rating. For example, you could simply escape without completing anything. You can also escape with the disc, or you can escape with the disc and set a bomb to blow the whole place to hell. All of this will determine your final rating, as is the time you take. You can also choose your difficulty level, giving everybody a chance. Gameplay relies on memorizing the building, finding items, and avoiding the guards as much as possible, all while trying to go as fast as you can. The C64 graphics were basically a direct port of the Spectrum version, and the sound effects were there for the occasional piece of atmosphere, but it was really nothing memorable. I had a lot of fun with this game back in the 80s, and the game was well received, earning a Crash Award for the Spectrum version and reviewing pretty well on the C64 port as well. In 1987, Saboteur 2, The Avenging Angel was released, and if you enjoyed this one, then giving that a look is well worth it. Now let's jump on over to the new version. Saboteur was released on the Switch in 2018 and can be considered a remaster of sorts of the original game. The original is still preserved just as it always was, with the option of playing it with a C64 or a Spectrum filter with many more unlockables available. I really like the new atmospheric sound effects and subtle music in the game now. It really adds a lot of atmosphere and is quite excellent. There is a lot of extra options too, from difficulty to filters, original or new music, a brief history of the series, etc, etc. The old building from the original game is here as well, as is a new one which is accessible after completing the first. I just wish you could have been able to select the new building from the get-go though. Having said that, since purchasing the game it has updated itself multiple times, adding a lot of subtle extra stuff, so just make sure you have the latest version. Gameplay wise, Saboteur is still exactly the same. Having said that, it's still a bit clunky, and if you're here for nostalgia then you're still gonna have a lot of fun, but if not, you may not enjoy the retro style of this game. Picking stuff up can be a bit of a chore, and the action is a bit hit and miss. So basically it's not going to win you over if you're a newbie to the series. That's why I'd only suggest you pick it up if you're a fan of the original version. Saboteur 2 is also heading its way towards the Switch and may even be out by the time this review is released, and I'm really looking forward to that as well, because I played that sequel quite a bit more than the original. Overall, Saboteur is a fun, cheap Switch nostalgia trip for classic computer gamers who should get a kick out of replaying this retro ninja action. And if you want to know where you can get versions of Saboteur, the original was released physically back in the day in the 80s, so you can find like a copy of that on eBay or something. It was available in multiple different versions, Commodore, ZX Spectrum, etc, etc. And as for the new version of Saboteur, obviously it's available on the Switch. It's also available through Steam for your PC, so you can check that out. And thanks for joining me, Bastish B at 64K, for another episode of Modern Vintage. If you can like and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!